Hi guys, it's MoeAnon and let's get right to it. The Georgia Guidestones, I'm sure many of us have heard, have been blown up. So if you don't know what the Georgia Guidestones are, I'm going to play just a little bit and explain what they are. I haven't pre-watched this, so we'll see what it says. Um, but let's go. Actually, let me make sure I have the audio. Oh, I would have been mad. Okay. So what are the Georgia?
On one of the highest hilltops in Alberton County, Georgia, stands a huge granite monument, nearly 20 feet tall, weighing approximately 240,000 pounds. There are 6 stones altogether, engraved in 8 different languages on the 4 giant stones that support the common capstone are 10 guides, or the 10 commandments. The monument is referred to as the Georgia Guidestones, or the American Stonehenge.
Now, I wanted to play this ahead of time because it has some important features. Um, for one is the major size and weight of these stones. Okay.
In June 1979, a well-dressed, articulate stranger visited the office of the Alberton Granite Finishing Company and announced that he wanted to build an edifice to transmit a message to mankind. He identified himself under the pseudonym of R.C. Christian.
Okay, so I want to read this. The story of the Georgia Guidestones began in June 1979, where a stranger identified as Mr. Christian, later R.C. Christian, visited Joe L. Finley Sr. This is kind of hard for me to read, of uh, Alberton Granite Finishing Company, Inc. It indicated that he represented a group of loyal Americans living outside of the state of Georgia who wanted to build a monument focused on the theme of, oh God, conservatism, commemoration. I can't read it. Mr. Christian, who, let's see if it comes into clear focus.
He said that he represented a group of men who wanted to offer direction to humanity, but to date, no one knows who R.C. Christian really was.
I'm going to go back and see if I can read it. Um, Mr. Christian, who was, I'm so frustrated, uh, assumed the pseudonym because he was a Christian named Wyatt C. Martin, president of the Granite City Bank, an intermediary to hold funds in escrow for the project, explaining that the Guidestone Group, which wished to remain anonymous forever, had selected Georgia because of its excellent granite mild climate and the heritage of his great grandmother as a native Georgian. I would be interested to know if this lays on a ley line. Um, and I have been starting to cover ley lines a little bit
Pseudonym of R.C.
lately, but been having a little trouble finding the exact. Anyway, uh, so anyway, Christian agreed to Martin's request to locate the monument in Elbert County if there were a uh, suitable remote site for it, which they found on a hillside that is the highest point in Elbert County on the farms of Mildred and Wayne, north of Filberton on Highway 77. Fendelev's company carved the six-part monument from pyramid blue granite. The Georgia caption messages measuring 19 and a quarter feet at the height. I'm sorry, you guys, that I'm having such a hard time reading this. At the highest peak, and 17 and a three quarter feet in the width, and its diameter is 65 feet. The overall weight of the 951 cubic feet of granite used is 237,746 pounds. So people were saying this was a bomb. That's a lot of weight to blow up. A grounded marker west of the Guidestone provides additional data and covers a buried tune capsule, buried time capsule. Wow, I didn't know it had a buried time capsule underneath it. Each of the four sides of the capsule features the statement of cautionary guidelines to humankind, translated into Babylonian, cuneiform, classical Greek, Sanskrit. So some of these are ancient languages, as you know, and Egyptian hieroglyphics. It's a very strange monument, to say the least. To let these be guidestones to remain below the guidelines are carved into 8 faces of the 4 outer stones in English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindu, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, Russia. In English, the guidestones specify the following. So I think they all say the same. You can see how they are double-sided and written. And this is what they say: maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Guide reproduction wisely, improving finesse and diversity. Sounds like a little eugenics there. Unite humanity with a living new language. Courts, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. Some of these are actually lessons that are taught in the Bible, to be honest. Balance personal rights with social duties. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Be not a cancer on earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. In addition to these conservation messages. The monument displays a number of astronomical features. The Georgia Guidestone Monument, which is owned by Elbert County, was dedicated on March 22nd, 1980. So that would be 3/22/80. If you add that up, that would be 17, 18, 22, and 3 would be 25. I'm just doing a little quick numerology here. And since has remained a source of mystery and intrigue to its numerous visitors and those who learn of it from afar. Okay, sorry that took so long, but I think it's important. Okay, here we go.
Christian. He said that he represented a group of men who wanted to offer direction to humanity, but to date, no one knows who R.C. Christian really was or what group he represented.
R.C. Christian. What could R.C. stand for? R.C. Roman Catholic.
The message engraved on the Georgia Guidestones deal with global governance, the establishment of a world government, global depopulation, the environment and man's relationship to nature, and a new one-world spirituality. The message of the Georgia Guidestones. 1. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. 2. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. 3. Unite humanity with a living new language. 4. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason.
So what could be a living new language that has come around since the 80s? Maybe some type of AI?
5. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. 6. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. 7. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. 8. Balance personal rights with social duties. 9. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. 10. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. Limiting the population of the earth to 500 million will require the extermination, the murder, of 9/10 of the world's people. The true significance of the Georgia Guidestones is that it confirms the fact that there is an elite group whose plan involves reducing the population of the world, establishing a one-world government, and promoting a one-world spirituality. More details about the monument itself. Made of pyramid blue granite, the Georgia Guidestones are meant to withstand the test of time and to communicate knowledge on several levels: philosophically, politically, astronomically. It consists of 4 major stone blocks which contain 10 guides for living in 8 languages.
So the construction itself is kind of an abnormal type construction, I would say. Has a capstone here, right?
English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. A shorter message is inscribed at the top of the structure in 4 ancient languages scripts: Babylonian, Classical Greek, Sanskrit, and Egyptian hieroglyphics. It is important to note that those last 4 ancient languages are of a great importance in the teachings of occult mystery schools, such as the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians. This is most likely why the anonymous man chose the pseudonym R.C. Christian. The 4 major stones are arranged in a giant paddle wheel configuration, which are oriented to the limits of the migration of the sun during the course of the year and also show the extreme positions of the rising and the setting of the sun in its 18.6-year cycle. The center stone has two special features. First, the North Star is always visible through a special hole drilled from the south to the north side of the center stone. Second, another slot aligns with the positions of the rising sun at the time of the summer and winter solstices, and at the equinox.
So this is almost something that would serve as a map if half of our population or more than half of our population is wiped out. Old, even in the Bible, it says, let the stars, let you know when the seasons are. And the pyramids are said to align up with planets. So it's much deeper than just some kind of a statue.
At the base of the Guidestones lies an explanatory tablet listing some of the details of the structure. It also mentions a time capsule buried underneath it. The contents of this time capsule, if it exists, are a total mystery. The opening date of the time capsule
Placed 6 feet below this spot. On. To be opened. On.
has been left blank. The Rockefeller Foundation. The United Nations Population Fund, World Bank, and World Health Organization developed the Task Force on Vaccines for Fertility Regulation. Just 4 years after the Rockefeller Foundation launched massive funding operations into anti-fertility vaccines, the task force was created under auspices of the World Health Organization, World Bank, and UN Population Fund. Quote, the task force acts as a global coordinating body.
Okay, this video is more than 2 years old, so I think we know what they're getting at with the vaccines, but I'm gonna you can see this was written in 1990. I don't want to skip too much of it so that we're losing parts, but I don't want to look at the face of the devil.
The task force has succeeded in developing a prototype of an anti-HCG vaccine. One of the task force members, P.D. Griffin,
All right, let's go back. We missed it.
Development in the various working groups and supports research on different approaches such as anti-sperm and anti-ovum vaccines and vaccines designed to neutralize the biological functions of HCG. The task force has succeeded in developing a prototype of an anti-HCG vaccine. One of the task force members, P.D. Griffin.
Okay, so this is the WHO Task Force on Vaccines for Fertility Regulations. Over the past 18 months, the WHO Task Force on Vaccines for Fertility Regulations has been supporting basic and clinical research on the development of birth control vaccines directed against the gametes. Gametes are a sperm in the egg, or the pre-implantation embryo. These studies have involved the use of advanced procedures in peptide chemistry, hybridoma technology, and molecular genetics, as well as the evaluation of a number of novel approaches in general vaccinology. As a result of this international collaborative effort, a prototype anti-HCG vaccine is now undergoing clinical methods. HCZ. I'm going to have to look that up because we missed it. Give me a minute. I don't want to lose anything here. HCZ vaccine. HCQ vaccine. HCZ vaccine. herpes. Was it HCZ? What am I doing?
Outlined the purpose and trajectory of these fertility regulating vaccines. Griffin stated, quote, "The task force has continued to coordinate its research activities with other vaccine development programs within WHO and with
Task force has continued to coordinate its research activities with other vaccine and development programs with who. So we already know this was from 1990. They have been working on this. The sperm antigen classification system has been initiated by the task force using the same techniques and procedures as for the trophoblast antigen work in an effort to standardize and rationalize the information being generated by the large number of investigators working in this area with support from a result of these initial studies. Okay, so we know they're working on the rationale for fertility regulating vaccine development. So they were working on this.
other international and national programs engaged in the development of fertility regulating vaccines. In August of 1992, a series of meetings was held in Geneva, Switzerland regarding, quote, fertility regulating vaccines. According to the document Fertility Regulating Vaccines, classified by the WHO as a limited distribution, present at those meetings were scientists and clinicians from all over the globe, including then biomedical researcher of the American Agency for International Development and current research chief of USAID, Mr. Jeff Spieler. In 1986, Mr. Spieler declared, quote, "A new approach to fertility regulation is the development of vaccines directed against human substances required for reproduction. Potential candidates for immunological interference include reproductive hormones, ovum and sperm antigens, and antigens derived from embryonic or fetal tissue. Recent advances in biotechnology, particularly in the fields of molecular biology, genetic engineering, and monoclonal antibody production, are
Monoclonal antibody production. Where have we just heard that?
bringing anti-fertility vaccines into the realm of the feasible." Quote, "Vaccines interfering with sperm function and fertilization could be available for human testing by the early 1990s, Spieler wrote. The following quotes are from the 1977 book, Eco-Science, co-authored by John P. Holdren, Obama's science czar. "The development of a long-term sterilizing capsule that could be implanted under the skin and removed when pregnancy is desired opens additional possibilities for coercive fertility control. The capsule could be implanted at puberty and might be removable with official permission."
Okay, so right now I think they're talking about birth control that we already have that is long term that you can get implanted in your arm. They were just developing this in the 90s.
For a limited number of births. Why should the law not be able to prevent a person from having more than 2 children? Perhaps those agencies, combined with UNEP and the United Nations Population Services, might eventually be developed into a planetary regime, sort of an international super agency for population, resources, and environment. He continues, "The planetary regime might be given responsibility for determining the optimum population for the world and for each region, and for arbitrating various countries' shares within their regional limits.
Okay, so
Control of population size."
this goes right along with what we have heard Bill Gates say many times about controlling populations with vaccines. Control of population size might remain the responsibility of each government. but the regime would have what regime? Some power to enforce the agreed limits.
Might remain the responsibility of each government, but the regime would have some power to enforce the agreed limits.
First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
On leaving Microsoft, Bill Gates bought $23 million of Monsanto shares. Globally, he now promotes GMOs and a vaccines collection he calls the solution for the world. Gates has been recorded explaining this solution is actually to cut the world's population. The BBC says his foundation's funding big sterilization programs such as this one that blasts men's scrotums with ultrasound to damage the sperm. Here Gates actually calls for the so-called death panels to decide whether folks should live or whether, as he puts it,
Death panels.
they have no benefit whatsoever.
And a lack of willingness to say, is spending $1 million on that last 3 months of life for that patient, would it be better to see which ones actually have no benefit whatsoever? But that's called the death panel, and you're not supposed to have that discussion.
Anthony Gates actually brags he's doing God's work. The boss of Goldman Sachs said exactly the same thing while sending millions into starvation. What the heck is going on?
His father was one of the main grandfathers of the whole entire eugenics movement here inside the United States. And it's still going strong today.
My dad was head of Planned Parenthood, and
So we already know a lot of this stuff. I don't want to be redundant. But let's just skip around a little bit and see what we got.
Medical and nursing facilities to slum mothers as insidiously injurious.
All right.
In the same bit of civilization.
Grandfathers of the whole entire eugenics movement here inside the United States. And it's still going strong today.
my dad was head of Planned Parenthood, and it was very controversial.
In 1922, Sanger wrote a book entitled The Pivot of Civilization. In it is a chapter called The Cruelty of Charity, where she blasts programs that provide medical and nursing facilities to slum mothers as insidiously injurious. In the same book, Sanger called for the cessation of charity, for the segregation of morons, misfits, and the maladjusted, and for the sterilization of genetically inferior races. She also argued that organized attempts to help the poor was the surest sign that our civilization has bred, is breeding, and is perpetuating defectives, delinquents, and dependents. The Birth Control Review was Sanger's official publication for the American Birth Control League, and in 1932 she outlined her plan for peace.
Now, I just have said this before, but I want to say it again. When I was in nursing school, Margaret Sanger was taught to us to be like some kind of person to be honored for her work that she did with Planned Parenthood and developing clinics. And it's funny that all these years later, I would be interested in what they teach about Margaret Sanger in nursing school.
The main objectives of the Population Congress would be to apply a stern and rigid policy of sterilization and segregation to that grade of population whose progeny is already tainted, to give certain dysgenic groups in our population their choice of segregation or sterilization, and to apportion farmlands and homesteads for these segregated persons where they would be taught to work under competent instructors for the period of their entire lives.
So basically what they're saying is people that are born with some kind of developmental disability, or maybe not an IQ high enough that they are deemed to function in society, would be put in some sort of a home, which is exactly what happened. They ended up in institutions where they worked on farms. The institutions were entirely self-sufficient. They had their own printing presses. They had movie theaters. They had cafeterias. They had bowling alleys, and the clients worked there. And later, when CIA documents were revealed, it was also revealed that they were doing experiments there. So I don't want to harp too much on this. I think we get the point that sterilization was a big factor in what these people believe.
He performed on thousands of North Carolinians from 1929 all the way to 1970.
All right. I keep skipping stuff, and I don't think we should be skipping it.
Specifically targeting African Americans.
No one told me. I never even...
For these segregated persons, where they would be taught to work under competent instructors for the period of their entire lives.
Sanger's admiration for the eugenics programs of Nazi Germany were well known at the time. In 1933, the Birth Control Review published Eugenic Sterilization, an Urgent Need, by Ernst Rudin, who was Hitler's director of genetic sterilization and the founder of the Nazi Society for Racial Hygiene. In her praise for the eugenics programs in Germany, Sanger called for the implementation of such programs in the United States, specifically targeting African Americans.
No one told me. I never even knew.
She had been sterilized, targeted by a state board that ordered that this kind of surgery be performed on thousands of North Carolinians from 1929 all the way to 1974. 7,600 men, women, and children determined by social workers to be feeble-minded or promiscuous were sterilized, usually without their consent, and it was perfectly legal.
Little boys, they would castrate them. Little girls, they would go inside them and take out their organs.
State Representative Larry Womble.
Why would they want to do that to a young girl?
Why did they?
Well, they had several reasons they thought were valid at that time.
Their reasons were based on a scientific theory called eugenics, which became popular in the 1920s. Eugenicists believed that poverty, promiscuity, and alcoholism were inherited traits. It was a simple theory with a radical solution. Sterilize those the state would have to take care of and improve society's gene pool. Some of America's wealthiest citizens of the time were eugenicists. Dr. Clarence Gamble of the Procter & Gamble fortune and James Haynes of the Hosiery Company founded the Human Betterment League, which produced brochures like these, stoking fears of, quote, morons mixing with the general population.
Representative, when you look back, was this a well-intentioned idea with the best science at the time that then just went awry?
I don't know if that was the best intention to weed out negative things in our society. You're playing God over a whole group of people's lives, and I don't think we're supposed to play God like that.
Because that's what he says. If we do a good enough job with vaccinations and everything, we'll be able to reduce the population. The polio vaccines now are the #1 cause of polio. There's no question that Bill Gates is not doing God's work. And if he is doing God's work, I would ask which God?
The benefits there in terms of reducing sickness, reducing the population growth, it really allows the society a chance to take care of itself.
CDC patent number CA2741523A1. Ebola. Operating out of South Africa during the apartheid era in the early 1980s, Dr. Walter Bassan launched a secret bioweapons project called Project Coast. The goal of the project was to develop biological and chemical agents that would either kill or sterilize the black population and assassinate political enemies. Among the agents developed were Marburg and Ebola viruses. Bioweapons expert Jean Gulliman writes in her book Biological Weapons, From the Invention of State-Sponsored Programs to Contemporary Bioterrorism, quote, the project's growth years were from 1982 to 1987, when it developed a range of biological agents, such as those for anthrax, cholera, and the Marburg and Ebola viruses, and for botulinum toxin.
Okay, so now we're moving on to bioweapons And their next plan.
Near his home in Oxfordshire in 2003. The official story claims that he...
Oh, I don't want to skip. Every time I skip a part, it seems like something good. Okay, let's go right.
Western agencies that such as those for anthrax, cholera, and the Marburg and Ebola viruses, and for botulinum toxin. Bassan claims to have had contact with Western agencies that provided ideological assistance to Project Coast. Bassan stated in an interview shot for the documentary Anthrax War that he had met several times with Dr. David Kelly, the infamous UN weapons inspector in Iraq. Kelly was a top bioweapons expert in the United Kingdom. He was found dead near his home in Oxfordshire in 2003. The official story claims that he committed suicide.
All right. I like to stop to read these sometimes. Sensation on eve of Hutton report as 3 medical experts question suicide of scientists. Was Kelly murdered? I can't read the rest, but apparently he was murdered.
The official story claims that he committed suicide. A week prior to his death, Dr. Kelly was to be interviewed by MI5 about his ties to Dr. Bassan.
Kelly's death was not caused by an overdose. Kelly's inquest is now imperative. Riddle of helicopter that landed at scene of Dr. Kelly's death. Fingerprint riddle leads to new call for Kelly inquest.
Dr. Timothy Stamps, Minister of Health of Zimbabwe, suspected that his country was under biological attack during the time that Bassan was operating. Stamps told PBS Frontline in 1998 that, quote, "The evidence is very clear that these were not natural events. Whether they were caused by some direct or deliberate inoculation or not is the question we have to answer." Stamps specifically named the Ebola and Marburg viruses as suspect. Stamps thinks that his country was being used as a testing ground for weaponized Ebola.
Henry Kissinger, depopulation should be the highest priority of foreign policy towards the third world. How could someone say something like that?
President Obama's new Ebola czar, Ron Klain. When asked what was the greatest threat facing our world today, Ron Klain replied,
"The top leadership issue challenging our world today is how to deal with a continuing, growing population in the world."
The World Health Organization said today that by December 1st, the region could see 5,000 to 10,000 new cases every week.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
The first General Director of the United Nations Educational, Science and Culture Organization, UNESCO, Fabian socialist and secular humanist Julian Huxley, brother of Aldous Huxley, stated, "The task is to help the emergence of a single world culture."
Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
So it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
At the end of the Cold War, Henry Kissinger pointed out in his superb book on diplomacy, he said, "None of the most important countries which must build a new world order."
And this present window of opportunity during which a truly peaceful and interdependent world order might be built.
And the hope that each of us has to build a new world order.
2009 is also the first year of of global governance with the establishment of the G20 in the middle of the financial crisis. The climate conference in Copenhagen is another step towards the global management of our planet.
It's about the future of the whole region. It's about the future of Europe and a new world order.
The transatlantic partnership was never just the foundation of our security. It was the foundation of our way of life. It was forged an experience of the most bitter and anguished kind. Out of it came a new Europe, a new world order.
I think a new world order is emerging, and with it the foundations of a new and progressive era of international cooperation.
So you really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order.
Be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity.
Your class has an incredible window of opportunity to lead in shaping a new world order.
We meet here at a moment of testing for Europe and the United States, and for the international order that we have worked for generations to build.
What do you think America's place in the new world order should be? It's always been seen as the global policeman. What should America be doing?
I think
globally?
The global policeman should be the United Nations.
A total population of 250 to 300 million people, a 95% decline from present levels, would be ideal. Ted Turner, founder of CNN.
Okay. So that is a little bit more into the Georgia Guidestones. Now, if you don't know, I'm going to play you some clips of what happened today. I did a show yesterday on CERN. If you don't know what CERN is, it is a underground particle collider is what I want to call it. They are in search of the God particle. There's rumors that they are opening portals with it. It had been closed for 3 years, and yesterday was the day that they restarted it up again. So I think it's a coincidence that this happened, but here we go with a few clips of what happened.
Mysterious Georgia Guidestones. Here's a live exclusive Sky 4 look from the site. People who live nearby say they heard a boom this morning. Right now, our Rashad Williams is joining us live from Elbert County, Georgia, with what we know so far. Rashad.
Well, Destiny, right now we know that GBI is assisting with this investigation, but we've got multiple units here on scene, including the GBI's bomb disposal unit. Now, the GBI tells us there is still an active explosive hazard.
I am going to pause this every once in a while because of copyright potential, but this is the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. They're all set up there. I would be interested in seeing if there were any practice drills that happened before this, because that seems to be the pattern on 7/7 in England. They were doing drills on 9/11. They were doing drills. Boston bombing. They were doing drills right before the actual event occurred.
Happening here. So to give you a closer look, I want to show you some viewer photos that were sent to us. There's a lot of rubble as a result of what GBI says stems from unknown individuals that detonated an explosive device around 4 a.m., which has destroyed a large portion of this structure. And we do know that Georgia Guidestones has 4 column-like sides to it. And from the photos, Sky 4 video, and from where I'm standing right now, it looks like there are now 3. We've seen several comments from people that live in this area saying they believed it was thunder.
Okay, so they destroyed 3 of those columns. I think that would take a lot of manpower.
Because it caused their houses to shake, some describing it as a boom that they heard and felt around 4 a.m. Again, GBI confirming they believe this happened around 4 a.m. So I want to give you a live look at Sky 4 once again. Over the scene right now, GBI has started to mark this area. And for those that don't know what the Georgia Guidestones are, according to Explore Georgia, in part, it's Elberton's most unusual and mysterious set of granite monoliths.
I would say in the United States, it is the most mysterious structure that we have, especially because it's written in so many ancient languages. You know, in Egypt, when you see things written in Egyptian, you expect it, but not in Georgia.
It's known as America's Stonehenge, which stands at 19 feet high, and it also serves as an astronomical calendar, as well as containing messages about the conservation of mankind, which is seen for many here in this area as controversial. Now, again, details are limited at this time, but just to reiterate, investigators on scene have told us there is still an active explosive hazard here at the Georgia Guidestones. We will be working throughout the day to bring you the latest updates.
Okay, one video. Let's go to the next one. Come on, little video. So some people have footage of it actually happening. A lot of smoke. Replay that. We didn't get much of it. Okay, I'm gonna replay it again. Actually, I'm gonna replay it in slow motion. Slow motion for me. Slow motion for me. Let's go to 1/4 and let's see what we got. So it looked like this got hit first, but then you have all this smoke coming from over here. It's a lot of smoke. It's white smoke, which indicates something. I don't know what. But very interesting. Let's replay it one more time. Watch. That got blown up. But here, it doesn't look like it's blown up. 1, 2, 3. Notice the capstone, because the capstone was busted on the other one. $403. Okay, I have another one. Come on now. Keep up with me. This guy talking about, I don't know if we want to go through it again, but
Things happening right now in eastern Georgia. Investigators are working to learn what and who damaged the Georgia Guidestones.
okay, what in the God's name is going on? Normal. Okay. Maybe I didn't play.
Georgia investigators are working to learn what and who damaged the Georgia Guidestones. So far, we know part of the 42-year-old monument was damaged by some kind of explosive. It's all happening in Elbert County. That's near the South Carolina Drive. Sachs, what's the latest for us?
Tracy, just within the last 15 minutes, the monument was leveled as crews were working the site. Those last 3 remaining pillars came falling down. The guides.
So they came falling down, or they got knocked down? Huh.
Stones is one of Georgia's most mysterious structures to this day. We don't know the true identity of the group responsible for erecting the granite monolith. Now, some 40 years later, after its inception, the GBI's Special Operations Unit, along with several law enforcement agencies, are sifting through the rubble, looking for clues into who tried to bring it down. 2 hours northeast of Atlanta, near the South Carolina border, an investigation is underway into the partial destruction of the Georgia Guidestones outside the town.
Okay, so you can see here, they're still pretty intact. The capstone's still on there. I wouldn't think that those would just collapse on their own. I think they were knocked down.
Town of Elberton.
There's a lot of hate in this world, but it's not on those blocks.
According to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, a group of people set off an explosive device around 4 Wednesday morning, destroying a large portion of the 19-foot-tall monument.
I know that one of the wings is completely destroyed and is laying on the ground. The other ones probably have been compromised as well, and I know the capstone has been compromised.
Chris Cubis is with the Elberton Granite Association. The group works.
So he's saying, what a strange picture with cows and these orbs. Odd.
Works with the county to preserve the Guidestones, which were unveiled in 1980.
We had visitors come to see that monument from around the world. And you know, now it's been damaged.
Known as the Stonehenge of America, the Guidestones consist of 4 massive granite slabs, each weighing more than 40,000 pounds. Engraved on them, a 10-part message in 12 different languages, offering a guide on how to preserve mankind.
They told us what they wanted to do.
In May, GOP gubernatorial candidate Candace Taylor vowed to demolish the structure if elected, claiming the Guidestones are satanic.
Those kinds of statements, they're incendiary, and they can cause people to do things.
Cause people to do things like tear down a 40,000 ton, is that what they said? Monument?
So, you know, I hate to think that that's what would have done it.
It's the lifeblood of Elberton.
For Elberton's Mayor Daniel Graves, the Guidestones represent the quality and skill the men and women who make up the town's thriving stone industry possess.
For 122 years, we've been making memorials for the entire nation. 2/3 of the memorials in the United States come from Elberton.
He said his community may be heartbroken now, but they will recover.
The only thing stronger than the granite we stand on top of is the hearts of our community.
And again, the monument.
So that's another thing. I went to a fair one time, and they were actually selling gravestones made out of granite. And the guy was doing a demonstration on how granite is one of the hardest substances in the world. And the only thing that can engrave it is diamond, because it's harder, which I thought was interesting. And I always remembered, not that that had anything to do with this, but just a little tidbit.
All pillars on the ground tonight, no one injured. We do understand that the Guidestones have been vandalized in the past, but not to this extent. There are cameras in the area. You can bet the GBI will be looking through that footage. They also want to hear from anyone who may have seen anything early this morning.
Well, it was on camera. Hello.
Or knows anything about the people responsible.
Interesting. So this guy is talking a little bit.
But then it was America in the 1980s. So perhaps we should just be surprised that there aren't more stones like this all over the place. Imagine a dozen different monuments, all with different rules, and all being followed by a different group of survivors. I don't normally speculate like this in videos, but these stones inspire some pretty good stories. And some pretty bad ones, too. Because, like I said, if you wanted to inflame conspiracy theorists, building a modern Stonehenge that acts as an astronomical calendar with 10 commandments inscribed upon it, one of which says that you should guide reproduction wisely, and another that says it'd be a really good idea to have a world population under 10% of what it currently is, and doing all that while hiding your identity. Yeah, I can see why that might make people with a slightly tenuous grasp on reality a bit angry. All the best secret societies, after all, do put up giant monuments advertising their goals for the world. Maybe someday we will know the real reasons behind these stones, but until then, there is a rule of thumb called Occam's razor. The simplest solution tends to be the correct one, and a rich person who saw Stonehenge and thought, I want one of those, is a pretty simple solution.
I'm not sure about that. So I didn't mean to carry this video on for hours. A little bit more drone footage. So you can see that that is still quite intact even after the explosion. That leads me to believe, and what is this thing over here, I wonder? That's leading me to believe that they knocked it down. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Do you guys want to watch more? Let's see what we can get. Georgia, you're probably bored by now. I could do this for hours, guys. Georgia Guidestones. I just want to see. So now every video that you try to find on Georgia Guidestones is coming up with the destruction of the Georgia Guidestones and nothing about, why didn't it give me anything? Hold on. The Georgia Guidestones, symbol of mass murder, agenda of the elite. Let's see, Georgia Guidestones exposing corruption. That was 3 months ago. It's 30 minutes. I don't think we want to do that. Graphene, COVID vax. 11 months ago. The Georgia Guidestones. The Georgia Guidestones. Mr. Truth Bomb. Georgia Guidestones, recipe for depopulation. I think we get the hint. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below if you'd like me to do more on this. I don't know that there's much more I could cover, but I just thought it was interesting to see the footage. And let me know what other kind of videos you guys like. I did start doing a CERN video yesterday. This Jim Crenshaw, let's see what he has.
The Georgia Guidestones were vandalized. Whoever did this, you are a hero. This should have been done a long time ago. Good job.
And that wasn't done too very long ago. Maybe not that long ago. All right. I guess we'll leave it at that. So this was the CERN I was doing yesterday. Here's some explosion footage. To tell you the truth, I want to slow this down if I can. I can only go to halfway normal. It doesn't look like anything fell. Take a look. You see him there. I'm gonna go very slow. You see it there. You see this ball of fire here. It's still on 1 second here. Why are we? Okay. So the ball of fire. The ball of fire. I'm going to put it on full screen. The ball of fire looks like it's detonating over here. It's detonating over here, but you can see the blowout over here. Also, what looks like orbs or something here. Very odd. See, you see the explosion over here, right? So you would think that these were the three that were crumbling down. Oh, I guess you can kind of see this one coming down. Let's see if that one's down at the end. I don't know why it goes to black like that. Oh, I think you can see this one falling back there. Oh, very strange. All right, I don't want to keep you any longer. Like, share, subscribe. Tell me what you want me to do more shows on. And tell me I wasn't sharing the screen that whole time. Was I? Please tell me I was sharing the screen.
Well, I tell anybody. I got the AR-15s at home, and I like to go target shooting.
I hope I was sharing that. If I wasn't, I'll try to edit it out. I certainly hope I was sharing it. All right, enough of that. Love you guys. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, and Have a good night.